Hey there, throughout history, people have always been fascinated by the connection between our physical traits and who we are inside. The Stoics, for instance, were great at observing human behavior and believed that our bodies can reveal a lot about our character, emotions, and desires. Today we're diving into the psychology behind some physical traits, especially focusing on women's bodies, to see what hidden truths they might reveal. Before we jump into this fascinating discussion, make sure you stick around until the end. If you find this content interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Alright, let's explore 7 chapters that are sure to surprise you. Chapter 1. The significance of a small nose. Have you ever noticed how some women with smaller noses seem to have certain traits that stand out? It might sound a bit odd, but there's a belief that a woman's nose size could be linked to other characteristics of her body, particularly her intimate anatomy. This idea has been around for a long time and even pops up in some modern psychological theories. The Stoics, those keen observers of human behavior, would likely see the nose as more than just a facial feature. To them, it might represent a window into a person's overall health, vitality, and even personality. From an evolutionary standpoint, a smaller nose has often been associated with femininity. Society tends to link smaller noses with delicacy and fragility, raising some interesting questions about what that could say regarding a woman's intimate anatomy. While there might not be solid scientific evidence supporting the connection between nose size and body features, it's definitely rooted in cultural perceptions. Many people believe that a smaller nose could hint at a smaller, more refined intimate area, fitting into the broader idea that smaller features often represent refinement or subtlety. This belief goes way back to ancient times when different facial and body traits were thought to reveal deeper truths about a person's character and even their sexuality. There's something comforting in making these kinds of assumptions. Humans love to categorize and understand the world around them, especially when it comes to attraction and relationships. A small nose might seem like a tiny detail, but for centuries, it's been seen as a marker of femininity, suggesting softness and elegance. Now, it's important to remember that this varies across cultures. In some societies, a small nose is celebrated, seen as a sign of beauty and grace, and people believe it gives insights into a woman's overall physical traits, including her intimate areas. However, every woman is unique, and while these physical correlations can be appealing, they don't always hold true. Stoic philosophy teaches us to observe without jumping to conclusions. Just because someone has a small nose doesn't mean her body fits into a neat little box. Our bodies are full of surprises, and the belief that a smaller nose might reflect a woman's intimate anatomy is probably more about cultural norms than concrete facts. When it comes to attraction and relationships, we often look for small details to help us navigate the complexities of connections. A small nose, while just one feature, can become a focal point for assumptions about a person's overall body and sexuality. But the Stoics would advise us to be cautious with these assumptions. While they're interesting to consider, they shouldn't be taken as absolute truths. Plus, in modern times, media and cultural beauty standards have amplified the idea that a small nose equals a delicate, feminine appearance. This perception reinforces the idea that a smaller nose means a smaller intimate anatomy. Yet, as the Stoics remind us, beauty standards are fluid. What one culture finds beautiful, another might overlook entirely. It's also worth noting how the nose fits into the bigger picture of facial symmetry and attractiveness. Psychological studies suggest that symmetry plays a key role in how we perceive beauty. A smaller nose can enhance facial symmetry, making a person seem more attractive and potentially hinting at refined physical features elsewhere. But remember, this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. While some may still cling to the belief that a small nose correlates with a woman's intimate anatomy, it's crucial to approach these beliefs with skepticism and nuance. The human body is way too complex to be understood through physical traits alone. Each woman is unique, and even if cultural and psychological factors lead us to draw connections, the Stoics would encourage us to dig deeper and look beyond surface-level assumptions. In conclusion, while the size of a woman's nose can be intriguing and spark discussions, it's just one part of who she is. The idea that a smaller nose indicates a more refined intimate anatomy is tied to cultural beliefs and psychological tendencies. But remember, no single physical trait can define a person entirely. Each woman, with her unique features, has so much more to offer than what we can glean from just one characteristic like the size of her nose. Chapter 2. The meaning behind delicate hands. But when we think about women with delicate hands, there's a lot more going on than just what meets the eye. Throughout history, delicate hands have been seen as a sign of elegance, grace, and femininity. But here's where it gets interesting. Some people believe that these smaller, more delicate hands might also hint at certain traits in other parts of the body, particularly when it comes to intimate anatomy. Now, while there's no scientific proof to back this up, these ideas have stuck around in various cultural beliefs and folklore. It seems like humanity has always been fascinated by how different physical features might connect with each other. Stoics, who were all about observation and reflection, would have seen hands not just as body parts, but as symbols of how we interact with life. Think about it, hands are our tools for action. They help us express ourselves and shape our surroundings. So smaller, delicate hands might suggest a gentle, more mindful approach to life. But remember, just because someone has delicate hands doesn't mean they're shy or timid. In fact, a woman's hands can tell you a lot about her personality. For instance, if she hasn't experienced physical intimacy in a while, her delicate hands might symbolize the restraint and boundaries she set for herself. You might notice that her hands reveal a lot about her comfort level and emotional state, like whether she's open and expressive or keeping her hands close to her body. It's fascinating how a simple touch on your arm or the way she holds something can communicate feelings that words sometimes can't capture. Sometimes, a woman might express her interest or attraction through those small, subtle gestures. But let's not jump to conclusions. While hands can give us insight into a person, they don't tell the whole story. Every woman is unique, and her hands, like her heart, will share their story in their own time and way. So as we dive into this, keep in mind that delicate hands are just one part of a much bigger picture that makes up who she is. Chapter 3: Gap Teeth and Their Implications. Have you ever noticed a woman with gap teeth? It's a striking feature, right? It might seem odd to focus on something like this when talking about the body. But there's been a long-standing cultural belief that gap teeth could suggest something about a woman's intimate traits. Some even think that women with gap teeth might have smaller intimate areas, which makes for some intriguing conversations about feminine features. From a Stoic point of view, everything about our bodies can reflect who we are inside. So, they might have found it interesting to consider what gap teeth say about a person. While they might not have bought into the idea that gap teeth directly relate to anatomy elsewhere, they'd understand the human instinct to find meaning in small details. So, why are gap teeth linked to smaller intimate areas? It probably comes down to our fascination with symmetry and proportion. A perfectly aligned smile is often associated with conventional beauty, while gap teeth break that mold. This kind of imbalance can lead some people to wonder about other unique features in the body, including intimate areas. Culturally, smaller is often seen as neater and more refined qualities that have traditionally been linked with femininity. Gap teeth can spark intrigue, they're rare and, let's be honest, unique. When we meet someone with gap teeth, it's easy to wonder if other parts of their body are just as distinctive. But the truth is, while gap teeth might catch our attention, they don't define a woman. In today's world, gap teeth are celebrated as symbols of individuality and charm. Many women embrace them as part of their beauty, seeing them as defining features rather than flaws. So, while the idea that gap teeth could imply anything about anatomy might still be floating around, it's more about personal expression and confidence these days. At the end of the day, every woman is unique, and her body can't be summed up by just one trait. Just like a smile tells part of her story, these beliefs offer only a glimpse into the complex perceptions of femininity and sexuality. Chapter 4: The Impact of Cheek Structure. When we talk about a woman's cheeks, there's a long-standing belief that fuller, rounder cheeks might suggest smaller, intimate areas. This idea has been around for ages, linking facial features to more intimate parts of the body. Different cultures often shape perceptions of femininity and beauty based on these traits, even if there's no scientific evidence to support such claims. Stoics, always keen on exploring the connection between body and mind, might have observed this with interest. For them, physical traits weren't just about beauty, they were markers of overall health and vitality. Fuller cheeks, for instance, are often associated with a youthful, fertile look. So it's no surprise that people might assume women with fuller cheeks have smaller, more refined, intimate areas. But here's the thing, while these beliefs can be intriguing, they oversimplify the complexity of individual bodies. Yes, fuller cheeks may give off a sense of softness, leading to assumptions about intimacy, but that's just one layer of the story. Historically, the idea that certain facial features indicate other body traits has influenced everything from art to societal beauty standards. But just because a woman has fuller cheeks doesn't mean her intimate anatomy follows any specific pattern. The Stoics would remind us to observe without judgment, emphasizing that beauty comes in many forms. Society often trains us to associate certain physical traits with specific characteristics. In this case, fuller cheeks are seen as soft and feminine, which might lead to assumptions about other aspects of her body. Yet, it's crucial to be aware of how these assumptions shape our perceptions and expectations. Ultimately, the belief that fuller cheeks indicate smaller, intimate areas is more about cultural fascination than scientific fact. It gives us a peek into how we interpret beauty, femininity, and sexuality. Whether or not there's any truth to this idea, it's an interesting reflection of how physical appearance intertwines with societal values and continues to shape our understanding of attraction. Chapter 5: Slim Women and Body Composition. One of the most persistent beliefs about women is that slim women often have smaller, intimate areas. This idea has been around for a long time and continues to shape how we perceive bodies. While some people might think there's a direct link between being slim and intimate anatomy, it's important to take a step back and examine this belief critically. Culturally, slimness has often been celebrated as the ideal body type. Many associate being slim with refinement, grace, and attractiveness. However, that doesn't mean every slim woman fits into a neat box regarding her anatomy. Just as we've seen with other traits, bodies come in all shapes and sizes, and every woman is unique in her own way. It's easy to fall into the trap of making assumptions based on appearance, but the Stoics would remind us to focus on the individual rather than generalizations. The human body is complex, and we can't truly understand a person based solely on physical traits. In modern conversations, there's a growing push to challenge these traditional beliefs and embrace body diversity. Women of all shapes are reclaiming their bodies and celebrating their unique features, regardless of societal expectations. This shift encourages us to appreciate each person for who they are rather than fitting them into preconceived notions. Ultimately, while the idea that slim women have smaller intimate areas persists, it's vital to recognize it as a stereotype rather than a reality. Each woman has her own story to tell, and our understanding of femininity and sexuality should be about celebrating that diversity rather than narrowing it down to a single trait. When it comes to understanding a woman's body, there's a common belief that her overall body composition can give us clues about her intimate anatomy. Many people think that slim women, with their lean and compact figures, might also have smaller, more refined intimate areas. This idea has been around for a long time. If we look at it from a Stoic perspective, those ancient philosophers who valued balance and harmony, they would have found this idea interesting. They saw physical traits as reflections of health and vitality. So, it's not surprising that a slim woman might be viewed as having her anatomy in proportion, leading to assumptions about other parts of her body being equally compact. Culturally, slimness has long been linked to youth and beauty. Many people have the mindset that if a woman is slender, her intimate areas must be smaller too. This perception influences how we view women's bodies and can create stereotypes that aren't necessarily true. Now, let's think about why we might believe this. It's part of human nature to look for patterns and connections. If someone has a slim figure, it's easy to assume that everything about her is similarly compact. But let's be real, this belief is far too simplistic. Every woman's body is unique, and being slim doesn't automatically mean her intimate anatomy is smaller. Chapter 6: Breast Size and Body Characteristics. When we talk about body myths, one of the most talked about topics is the connection between breast size and other intimate aspects of a woman's body. A common belief is that women with smaller breasts might also have a leaner frame, and this idea often extends to assumptions about their intimate anatomy. You might hear people say that women with small breasts also have smaller, tighter vaginas. This concept has been passed down through generations, but it's more rooted in culture than in science. If we think about how Stoic philosophers approached ideas like this, they would be curious but cautious. To them, the body was just a physical vessel. While outer appearances can give some hints about a person's health or habits, they wouldn't rely too heavily on those assumptions. Instead, they would emphasize the importance of understanding someone through deeper interactions and insights, rather than judging based on superficial traits like breast size. Despite that wisdom, the belief that smaller breasts indicate a more compact, intimate area still persists. This idea likely comes from societal standards that associate small breasts with slimness, youth, and a more refined physique. Since women with smaller breasts often have leaner body frames, people tend to extend that assumption to other areas, including intimate ones. From a psychological standpoint, this belief might stem from our tendency to create a cohesive image of a person. Small breasts can be viewed as a sign of femininity, but in a softer, more understated way. Similarly, a smaller and more delicate vagina is sometimes seen as a reflection of that subtle femininity. The cultural fixation on size can be misleading, and it's essential to remember that every woman's body is unique. Just because a woman has smaller breasts doesn't mean everything about her anatomy follows a predictable pattern. In the end, while these ideas might be interesting to think about, they can oversimplify the beautiful complexity of women's bodies. Let's appreciate each woman's individuality and recognize that there's so much more to her than any single trait. Let's dive into a topic that goes beyond just physical features and into how we perceive women's bodies, particularly their intimate anatomy. You know, a lot of these views aren't based on science, they're rooted in deep-seated cultural ideals about femininity. These ideas stick around because they fit into long-standing stereotypes about women's bodies. One reason these beliefs have lasted is because society often links larger body parts like breasts, hips, or thighs with fertility and sensuality. In contrast, smaller body parts are seen as refined and controlled. So, when it comes to women with smaller breasts, there's this stereotype that they're more reserved or less overtly sexual, which leads to the assumption that their intimate anatomy is similarly compact or restrained. But let's be clear, this stereotype doesn't really hold up. Every woman's body is unique, and no amount of looking can accurately predict what someone's intimate features might be. It's also interesting to see how fashion and beauty standards have shaped these perceptions over time. Different eras have celebrated different body types. In the past, when curvier figures were in style, women with small breasts might have been seen as lacking in femininity. Nowadays, where slim and lean is often idealized, smaller-breasted women can be celebrated for their grace and elegance. Yet, despite these shifts, the idea that small breasts mean smaller intimate anatomy is still a common assumption. Both the fashion industry, media, and even social circles all contribute to reinforcing these ideas, even when there's no real basis for them. At the end of the day, we can take a page from Stoic philosophy. Stoics remind us that we can't fully understand someone just based on surface traits like breast size. These beliefs, while still prevalent, don't capture the complexity of who someone really is. A woman with small breasts is no less feminine, sensual, or vibrant than one with larger breasts. Those physical traits, although often highlighted, are just a small part of the bigger picture of her identity. The Stoics would encourage us to detach from those superficial judgments and appreciate the whole spectrum of human beauty without focusing too much on isolated features. This leads us to the main takeaway. While society often connects breast size with other intimate features, these assumptions are built more on cultural preferences than on any inherent truths. The Stoics would urge us to rise above these surface-level judgments and recognize that a woman's true essence is far more complex than what meets the eye. Each body is a unique expression of an individual's life, and reducing it to mere stereotypes oversimplifies the richness of who they are. Chapter 7. Understanding the B-leg and its correlation. Now let's shift gears and talk about another feature that gets a lot of attention, the so-called B-leg structure. This term describes the subtle outward curve of a woman's legs that creates a B shape when viewed from the front or side. While this isn't a widely discussed topic, some body-related myths suggest that women with this leg structure tend to have smaller intimate areas. The Stoics, always observant and detail-oriented, would probably find this notion intriguing. They believed the body could provide insights into a person's inner state, but they also warned against making snap judgments based on appearances. With the B-leg, they'd likely acknowledge that while this could be an interesting feature, it doesn't necessarily reveal deeper truths about a woman's body or her intimate anatomy. The belief that a woman with B-legs might have a smaller intimate area comes from the same psychological tendencies that influence other body-related beliefs. Just as some people look to small noses or slim figures as indicators of physical characteristics, the B-leg structure has become another focus. This belief ties into broader societal ideas about symmetry, proportion, and balance. A woman with B-legs, which suggests elegance and delicacy, is often assumed to have a similarly refined intimate area. There's a psychological angle to consider here, too. Women with B-legs are often perceived as more graceful and poised in their movements. This sense of grace fuels the assumption that their bodies are compact, controlled, and proportionate, which in turn leads to the idea that their intimate anatomy is similarly structured. But here's the kicker: there's no scientific evidence to support the claim that women with B-legs are more likely to have smaller intimate areas than those with different leg shapes. Like many body-related myths, this idea sticks around because it appeals to our desire to categorize and simplify our understanding of the human body. From a Stoic perspective, it's wiser to focus on the overall health, strength, and vitality of the body rather than getting caught up in narrow traits like the B-leg. While it's tempting to draw conclusions based on visible markers, they don't tell the full story about a woman's body or her intimate areas. Ultimately, the connection between B-legs and smaller intimate anatomy is just another example of how we try to make sense of the human form through patterns and physical cues. While it's an intriguing idea, we should approach such beliefs with a critical eye and remember that every woman's body is unique and can't be reduced to simplistic formulas or assumptions. The Stoics would remind us that true understanding comes from looking beyond appearances and recognizing the deeper complexities of the human experience. As we wrap up this episode, it's clear that women's bodies carry so much meaning, especially in how we view them and interpret different physical traits. From small noses to breast size, leg structure, and everything in between, society has long tried to link external characteristics with intimate anatomy. But as we've explored these beliefs, it's vital to see that these connections are often based more on cultural assumptions than on scientific facts. The Stoics, with their deep understanding of human nature, would encourage us to observe carefully but refrain from quick judgments. They believed true wisdom comes from understanding the whole person, not just the parts. A woman's body is complex and multifaceted, and every trait, whether big or small, is part of a broader narrative of who she is. As tempting as it may be to reduce someone to a collection of physical features or myths, we must remember that every woman is unique. No amount of analysis can fully capture the depth of her personhood. The beliefs and body-related myths we discussed today might be fascinating, but they're not the ultimate truths. They remind us of our shared human tendency to seek patterns and meaning, even when they don't exist. So, what's the takeaway from all this? It's a deeper appreciation for the individuality of women's bodies and a reminder to approach these topics with curiosity and respect. Whether a woman has small breasts, gap teeth, B legs, or any other distinguishing feature, these are just parts of her physical form, not the entirety of who she is. The Stoics would tell us to look beneath the surface and value character and inner strength above all else. As we close, I encourage you to think critically about the ideas we've discussed today. Remember to observe, but also to question. Look beyond superficial traits and appreciate the full complexity of the women in your life. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any personal stories or insights related to this topic, we'd love to hear them. Let's keep the conversation going, because understanding the human body both inside and out is a journey that never ends. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and those around you.